Welcome to Interesting Enough. He is Trey. I am Nolan. Thank you guys so much for joining us once again. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you. We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, pretty much anywhere you can think of. We're on there. So, check us out for more content coming up. Trey, what's going on, man? How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. How you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling all right. We just watched Caitlin Clark. We didn't really plan to talk about that on the pod, but Caitlin almost got her first dub, so we were gonna record, but watching that, she got hurt, play well, and you know, like we said, it's a lot of losing for Caitlin. She hasn't lost a lot, so she gonna be crying in the car. That's
Yep.
what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen.
She's on
But
a bad team. She's not used to it.
yeah, like you said, she's gonna go through some growing pains. So hoping that we can see her get her first dub. Just a quick update: Nika Mule Trey, Seattle, visa still ain't approved. I just want to throw that out there. We talked about this last week. I actually thought by this time, she'd be playing.
Yeah,
Not
well,
playing.
listen, she doesn't play for the Supersonics. I mean, if she did, it would be approved. But hey,
I'm just saying, like, well, I don't. You know what? I think I do my due diligence and actually look into this more because I didn't think it's gonna last as long. I'm gonna do my due diligence and actually look into how long this process is because maybe it's not. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. But another week. Another Nika Mule not playing. So, it's another WNBA star we could be potentially missing out on. So yeah, but anyway, let's actually before we get to some basketball because it was two great games. Well, actually, one great game, one semi decent game. So we'll get to those in a minute. But let's talk about what actually rocked the internet this weekend, non-sports, and it was the Diddy situation. So everyone's by now seen the Diddy apology. Um, it looks like he was. I'm not actually hold back what I really want to say, but everybody's seen the Diddy
ah,
apology. Everybody's seen the Diddy apology. By now, and I think the video with Cassie got released a couple days before that. So, you know,
like a day
obviously,
or two. Yeah.
yeah. So obviously, a very unfortunate situation, and a lot of people already believe some of these things were happening, but the video serves as confirmation. Now, I wanted to swing it to you, Trey, to get your overall thoughts on it. One, but we've had this discussion before. I can't remember who it was with, unfortunately, because you know, uh, actually, unfortunately, we just get too many of these domestic violence situations when it comes to celebrities. Um, but I remember you bringing up the point about why we care about it with the video and people should take it more seriously. I'm probably butchering what you were saying, but I remember this point. This was a while back. So I just want to get your overall thoughts on the situation now that we do have a video. And then I guess we could just kind of go from there.
I mean, yeah, it was just a horrible situation. Um, I mean, the video it pretty much just summarized everything that people have been saying about Diddy as far as being in a relationship with him and how he can be abusive towards women. Um, the real question I have is just that how did this video just now come out? Like, I'm just so shocked that it didn't come out before then. And I can pretty much put two and two together and that he paid people off, but I'm just like, it's just so sickening the fact that, somebody with money can get away with these sort of things. And that's how it normally is, whether you're not you're Harvey Weinstein or somebody else, you can get away with this crap for years just because you have money to pay people off and make stuff disappear. But I'm happy it's coming to light because it should be known. And I will say this, as far as his apology goes, I don't know if you listened to it, but I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it was just a sorry apology because first you came out so strong. Was it like a couple months ago when Cassie first filed a lawsuit, how you were going to be proven innocent of everything and how everybody was trying to attack you and how everything was lies. You came out so strong against that to only be shown on video, not just alleged, but this is like actual confirmation, as you said, video evidence showing that you were totally abusive to her in this situation. And I'm pretty sure wasn't like a one-time event. This is just maybe the one time they got caught in video, but I'm pretty sure you did this to her multiple times, as she alleged. And then his apology video, he didn't even mention her by name. He just said he was sorry. So I felt it was a weak apology for somebody that came out so strongly and tried to deny everything up front.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In terms of the video, I'll address the video first and then the apology. The video, it it was already despicable behavior, but it is just some unhinged behavior at this point. Running out like in a towel to like commit this like act. It's just the visuals of the entire thing is ridiculous. Sitting down, throwing a vase, like to me, the things that people talk about with Diddy in terms of, and I've actually, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but this seems like a good time to mention it. I always felt like the thing that was with Diddy was the issues that people were alleging. I feel like they all had the same common trait, and it's just like he was almost like had too much power and seemed like a guy that's predatory. Excuse me. Seemed like a guy that's predatory over people that is powerless in situations that is next to him, per se, if that makes sense. So it seems like everything that he does, it seems to be like almost this like really power driven thing, which makes it almost feel even which I didn't even think anything can make it feel worse, but that does. And I'm looking at this video and I'm like, you know what type of behavior or type of power you have to like be able to do this thing in a completely public scenario, which is on an entire hotel floor, and not be worried about anybody hearing you or anything like that, when you know, because you know you have this much control. And then the second thing I thought was like, okay, well, he's got a lot of money. He's probably rented that entire floor, right? Like, I mean, if he's got that amount of money. So, but either way, like again, that's another power part of move of that too. So it's just an entire despicable, situation all around. And for him to previously, like you said, come out and apologize, or excuse me, not even apologize, to come out before and deny all these claims, to then wait till a video has been released, which a video that you knew that already exists. You thought you, like you said, Trey, he thought he paid somebody off, and that never was going to happen. But how many times do we have to see in these situations, whether it's TMZ, whatever site, you can't ever get rid of the evidence. It doesn't matter who you paid. Somebody will be willing to pay more. Or somebody will get fed up at some point and release it. So automatically your apology doesn't even feel genuine because you're doing it in a reaction to a video. You could have apologized before the video. You could have not denied anything. And then the second part, like you said, we already, most people watching this probably was already going to assume that this apology was for his own ego. But to not even have anything prepared, to even have yourself remember to apologize to the actual person, it just shows the complete lack of awareness of Diddy all around. So it's just really despicable. It's really not too much more we even need to talk about from it. It's unfortunate because he's was one of our hip hop, black heroes, and what do you think about in society? Like it seems like everywhere we turn, I don't want to be too dramatic about it, but we have a lot of our heroes that we grew up with, particularly sometimes in the black community, and it just feels a little disheartening to see all these warts come out of these guys' closets sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the main thing is that at least in Diddy's case as well, for example, there's been rumors about shading things happening for years. And I just think now with social media, with everybody having pretty much full access to any celebrity that you can imagine, I think it's just more stuff is coming to light. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I will say this, and this is not an excuse in any means to kind of support Diddy, but I will say this. If you could go back in time and look at the Frank Sinatras or any other celebrities from yesteryears, I think you would
Mhm.
see similar events in their past and similar accusations. So I'm just going to say that I don't believe that these celebrities are alone. I don't think this is something new. I think that for the first time in what seems like forever, this stuff is just finally coming to light.
That's a good point. There's a lot of people that we don't know um, what they've done. It's just people that have gotten caught, and some people haven't. So it's a good way to put it. But anyway, we got a lot to talk about. So let's get to actual the basketball, the fun stuff. Uh, I don't know where you want to start, Trey. I think we should probably start with Minnesota because that's the most exciting of it. We were texting back and forth game seven. I mean, there's so many ways we can go with this, but I want to just start by saying we were complaining about the role players of Minnesota leaving Anthony Edwards hanging in a lot of situations, and we thought that would be the downfall of Minnesota. And man, oh man, did they save the day when Anthony Edwards was struggling. And they saved the day for him in a big way. You know all the names: Nas Reed, Carl Anthony Towns, you know, Rudy, Dream Shake, Gobert, like all these guys saved Anthony Edwards until he can get his stuff together, and then he was able to hit the big shots and big moments when he needed them. And then I do want to mention one thing before I get your thoughts. I thought the biggest part of this for Anthony Edwards was he didn't stop competing on the defensive end, and he took the challenge of guarding Jamal Murray when it mattered most, particularly in that entire second half. And it didn't matter if he was making or missing shots; he was making Jamal Murray's life hell. I know Jamal still finished with like 35 points, but it's one of those if you have to watch the game to appreciate how hard those buckets were he got, and most of those buckets were actually in the first half, if I believe anyway. So, um, I just thought that that was something that should be noted in a league where we're always talking about crowning the next guy and the next face of the league. Most of these guys in the conversation, those conversations are not two-way players, and Anthony Edwards is becoming one of the truly great two-way players in the game today. So, wanted to mention that as well. But what's your overall thoughts on that game? And then we can talk about the series after that.
I mean, like you said, just started off with it was just a great game. At halftime, I thought it was going to be a blowout. I'm like, oh, Minnesota. Yeah, I was like, y'all just didn't come prepared. I'm like, Denver Nuggets, they're a veteran laden team. They've been here, they've done that. They won the championship last year. I thought they were going to run away with it. And then I watched it, but I'm still not even sure how Minnesota came back like they did.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I was just like, okay, it's still a formality. I'm like, Denver's going to do one of their patented runs, and they're going to make this a 3 to 5 point game, and then Minnesota's not going to be able to climb back. But Minnesota, they were able to hang on to that lead, and that's amazing because I want to say Anthony Edwards was like 6 of 26 something,
6 of 24. Yeah.
6 of 24. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was not a good shooting night on his part, but still, Karl Anthony Towns, Mike Conley. Hell, even Rudy Gobert on the offensive end, like they all stepped up when they needed to, and they did just enough to eke out a win. And I mean, that says a lot about just this team that Minnesota's been able to put around Anthony Edwards. I know that he's a star piece and he's the one that everybody's focuses on, but when you're looking at Nas Reed, Mike Conley, Karl Anthony Towns, you're just looking at them in totality. Like this is a really good team, and I think there's an argument to be made. I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but there's an argument to be made that this is the best team in the league at this moment.
I'm not gonna disagree with that. The one thing I will say, I'm not gonna forget about the other 6 games of that series. And the reason I say that is I still don't trust the role players in Minnesota on a consistent basis. They showed up in game 7, yes, showed up in a couple of the other games, particularly games 1 and 2. But there was a lot of nights in that series, and it's particularly in the regular season where I did not hear from a lot of those role players. And you and I both can basically agree we're not going to get that type of Carl Anthony Towns performance on a regular basis. Let's just call it what it is. He played excellent when he needed him to, and hopefully you get that more times than not. But you know how it is with Cat, and I hate to pick on him, but he's a number 2 guy, so that's just kind of what it comes with that. But yeah, Minnesota should be proud. Denver, they had a lot going on with the injuries with Murray. Jokic did not necessarily play his best game. And, I think Denver, nothing to really hang your head on. I mean, well, actually, there's something to hang your head on. You blew a 20-point lead. I guess I should say that. But the
Oh, don't
champs,
tell Mike Malone that.
well, Mike, you already know how I feel about Mike Malone. But yeah, Mike Malone necessarily is not one of my favorite coaches
Oh,
anyway.
he's not. Yeah.
So, he just seemed like a sore loser and was mad in the moment. I think he'll probably look back on that and realize that was probably a mistake to handle that press conference that way. But Denver, they feel the frustration, man. I mean, they got beat 3 times in their home court in a series to a bunch of young pups. You know what I mean? Well, young pups, and I guess there's some veterans. I shouldn't say that. There's Conley and Gobert, and Towns is not really super young. So, but big ups to Minnesota, and we're gonna get an exciting series. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk quickly about the Knicks and Pacers. Not really too much to talk about in that game. Bunch of injuries with the Knicks. It that was the microcosm of the Knicks season, postseason, I should say. And then it ends with Jalen Brunson breaking his hand. They were losing the game anyway. To be fair, they probably were still going to
Yeah.
lose, but it's worth mentioning that he couldn't finish the game as well. But what a performance by the Pacers and Halliburton, and who was a guy that we were questioning what he would do in a big game like this with being aggressive. And man, he came to play.
You're right. Again, I mean, just a hell of a performance by Halliburton and by the Indiana team. I still have to give the Knicks a lot of respect. It was a valiant effort on their part. Obviously, they were down a lot of pieces. OG, Randall, Mitchell Robinson, like even like you said, Bronson got hurt during the game. Josh Hart is playing injured. Like the list goes on and on. They were down a lot of pieces. I do think at this point, I'm just talking about after Sunday, the better team won, and that's just because the Knicks, again, their players are all hobbled up. So I do
Mhm.
think I am happy that Indiana won because I think we'll get a better series out of them versus Boston than we would have got New York versus Boston.
100%. Yeah. Nobody wanted to see it completely, especially Jalen Brunson breaking his hand. That would not be no fun to watch with the Alex Burke led Knicks playing Boston. That wouldn't have been exciting for anybody to watch. So I guess for basketball fans, we're glad about that. But let's pivot. Let's go back to Dallas and Minnesota because we didn't really talk about that series too much. OKC, they lost. SGA with the foul. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about really the game for the most part. They had a great year, and we were in between on the series. But I think OKC will be back. The one thing I did want to ask before we even get into the series, and I think this is a legitimate question, just for next year, not the future, not 4 or 5 years. Thought about this earlier. Who would you rather be? Would you rather be OKC or would you rather be Denver? Because I think it's a legitimate question, and I'm giving you time to think while saying this because I I don't want to say multiple years because OKC's young draft picks, this and that. But then you got Denver that still got the MVP in Jokic, and they both basically, I would say, both didn't meet the expectations, based on where they're seating and stuff like that. And both are going to have long summers, but presumably they're going to bring most of those guys back. But I think it's just interesting to think about, like, who would I rather be going forward? If I'm sleeping at night, who would I rather be, Denver, or OKC, just for next year in terms of competing?
I think just obviously you just presented a question to me, but in short, I think I'm about to go with OKC just because they have so many draft picks where I think that they could possibly bring another star to pair with SGA and to pair with Chat. Whereas
Mm.
Denver, in their case, I think they're going to be kind of limited what they could do. I think they could do some things in the fringes. Like, again, you remember they had that Bruce Brown signing a couple of years ago, and obviously that was proved to be very successful last year, especially in the finals. So I think they could do things along the edges. But I mean, you're not going to trade Jamal Murray. Michael Porter Jr., we're already having a discussion after this series that he might be overpaid. So I don't know what you're going to get back from him. So I just think that they're not going to be able to do as much as OKC will.
I would still go with Denver, and the reason why is I got the best player, and without a doubt have something that I know that works, and that combination between Jamal Murray, well, really the three of them are between Murray, Jokic, and Gordon. We know that that's proven and that works. And really, if they would have just got any contribution from a couple guys, I don't think Michael Porter Jr. is this overpaid. He just had a couple rough games and at the worst time of the year. I still would. I mean, I'm gonna put it to you this way: there's a legitimate argument I can say I'd rather have Michael Porter Jr. than Jalen Williams, J Dub. And I mean, I like J Dub, but we've seen Michael Porter Jr. have some big performances. It's just a thought, just something to throw out there.
Yeah, but J
Um,
Dub is still young. I mean, we haven't seen him really be in that position yet, other than this last series.
well, yeah, I'm still thinking in the prism of next year. So
Okay, okay, okay.
yeah, yeah. So if it's a couple years from now, yeah, yeah, for sure. But also to be fair, Michael Porter Jr. is not really old either. He's a pretty young guy. So, but yeah, so I still would take Denver. I think if they can replace some of the Peyton Watsons and Christian Brown minutes with some a couple other role players, this would feel a little bit different. But they're still a championship level team, and I don't know. But it's an interesting thought. But anyway, going to the Minnesota Dallas series because to me this is the most intriguing series. Um, and as a fan, I'm glad because the Mavericks were my sleeper earlier in the year. By the way, Trey, I want to throw that out there. Mavericks were my sleeper, and I did say the rookie to watch was Derek Lively. Just want to throw that out there. So I've been kind of on the Mavericks train for a little minute this year, but I don't know who I'm going to pick in this series because I could really see either way. Do you have a thought on it? Because it could really go either way.
Like you could go either way. I guess if forced to make a decision, I think I would maybe go with the Mavericks, and that's just because I think that they have the better player on the court of all times. If Luca's close to being healthy, I think that he's at this point, I think he's the second best player in the league. So I think that might be able to give Dallas a little bit of an edge. But again, we're talking about we have to factor in his health. I mean, that does factor in, and he doesn't appear to be quite 100% healthy. And
Yeah,
then when you're talking about the role players, I think that Minnesota just might have the better role players.
that's a see, and then I start thinking matchups like, are they going to be able to play Gobert off the court? And then it's like, it's Carl Anthony Towns, because if you were to tell me I can get a good Carl Anthony Towns, I'm picking Minnesota. I just don't know what I'm going to get out of him. And between him and Jaden McDaniels with some of the dumb fouls that they take, that's about the worst. Come on, you've seen it. Come on now. So like Luca might be about the worst guy to be going into a series and be like, don't take stupid fouls, because that's what he's looking for you to do. So
But
that's what makes it tough. Yeah, go ahead.
and I'm just gonna say, but in their defense, they did enough, and they didn't commit too many fouls. Like put it this way, they did enough to defeat the defending champions, the Denver Nuggets. And I think going into the playoffs, we all would have said, "Oh yeah, Denver is probably the best team in the West, and we don't see a team that can beat them." And they did enough to beat them. So like, I still
Yeah,
think this is a bit of optimism going for Karl Anthony Towns and the rest of that team going into facing the Mavericks.
but you know my problem is with Minnesota, Trey. I can't get out of my head those games 3 and 4, watching Minnesota struggle at home to get good offensive possessions for 3, 4, 5 minute stretches when they were trapping Anthony Edwards. You know what I mean? Like that image, I still can't get out of my head. And then a lot of possessions are ending with Jaden McDaniels with the ball in his hands with 2 seconds left, having a shoot a three from the corner or the wing. And I'm just like, there's a world where they can kind of defend Anthony Edwards in a way to get the ball out of his hands. And we just watched a game, Trey, where what did I text in the first half with Rudy Gobert? I said it hurts to watch. Like him get the ball. It hurts to watch. He's just throwing stuff up at the rim. You know what I mean? So
But it was falling the second half.
I wouldn't say it fell. Okay, one big
If it
shot
did
fell.
enough, it did enough. How about that?
Again, you're right for one game. That's the problem. That Rudy Gobert thing is not sustainable. Here's the way I look at it. What's sustainable with Minnesota and what's sustainable with Dallas? What can I rely on in both series? I can rely on Luca. I know what I'm going to get. Even if he's not a 100%, I kind of know what I'm going to get out of him production wise. Kyrie Irving, same thing. Even if he's not scoring at the same rate, him facilitating. Between Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington, one out of the two is going to have a decent game, just because they're going to be getting wide open looks. And Derek Lively showed me enough that he's an active enough big, and you can switch between him and Gafford. When I go to Minnesota, I can rely on Anthony Edwards. Here's what I can't rely on. I don't know if Rudy Gobert is going to be dominant defensively all the time. I don't know if he's going to be able to finish around the rim all the time. I don't know if Karl Anthony Towns is going to show up to play all the time. I don't know if Jaden McDaniels not going to be in foul trouble. You know what I mean? It's just way too many things that I can't rely on with Minnesota that makes me scared to pick them in a series. And that's the overall, that's the problem.
Okay, but listen, I think I'm just gonna end on this. I think we're also looking at Minnesota as an offensive team, and we're wondering what they're going to do offensively. But I mean, in the games that they won against Denver, their defense was what stood out. So if they can bring that same kind of defensive tenacity and match up well enough against the Mavericks, I mean, I know nobody can really match up with Luca, but at least make him work for it. Then I think we could look at this series from a different lens. And if we say, okay, they're going to bring that defensive intensity, then I think we have to ask, can the Mavericks match that defensive intensity on the other end? And I'm not sure they can. I just don't know if they had the pieces. So I think that that does give Minnesota an advantage.
Well, we've we've seen Dallas defend pretty well this year, Trey, for especially the back half of the year in the playoffs.
Better
So
than what they've done in the past, but I mean, it wasn't anything like we saw what Minnesota did this last series. Let's be honest.
I don't know. They had some stretches against OKC where OKC really couldn't find a bucket besides Shea just going nuclear. So I don't know. It's a honestly contrasting styles. You know, you got a great defensive team and in theory a great offensive team. So I guess that's what makes it exciting. I'm gonna pick the Dallas though. You pick Dallas. I'm gonna go with Dallas. I'm gonna probably say this is a 6 or 7 game series though. And to be honest with you, I would really be a little surprised if Minnesota actually makes their way to the finals with this with some young guys leading the way. I'd be honestly really surprised. But you got Dallas. I'm assuming you thinking it's a long series as well too, right?
Oh yeah, I'm thinking. I'm like I'm thinking this is 7 game series. I have Dallas, but when you say 7 game series, I feel like you're just saying 51% to the team you choose and then 49% to the other team. So
Yeah,
like,
basically, I'm kind of like hedging my bet. Yeah, you're right. Are you right? You're right. You're
yeah,
right.
you're hedging your bet. So like, Minnesota did win. It would not shock me at all, but I think it's going to be another long series right here.
All right, let's flip to the East.
I'm most to
Boston,
look at.
Boston and Indiana. Can I just make a quick case for Indiana? I know we're both
You can,
picking
hey
Boston.
man, you can take all the time you need because I don't know what to tell you about this series.
I'm just gonna make a case for Indiana. Not saying they're gonna win.
Oh,
We're
I know
both
they're
picking
not.
Boston. Yeah, to be clear, we're both picking Boston. But I'm just gonna make the case for Indiana. They just gonna have to create chaos, and that's what they're best at: running up and down the court, pushing the pace. Neesmith and Nemhard and TJ McConnell running around like their hair is caught on fire, just making things happen and making things uncomfortable for Boston. The one thing Boston has a trouble and a tendency to get into is a game that gets a little tight and a little uncomfortable, and they start taking deep mid ranges and deep 3 point shots and being stagnant and not moving the ball. Also, particularly when they don't have Kristaps Porzingis to dump the ball into as well. So, not saying that Indiana is going to win the series, but if they push that pace, they steal a game in Boston, they go back to that raucous crowd in Indiana. I could see a situation where we're walking into a game 4 and it's Indiana up 2-1, and we're like, Boston, you got to show up and make it happen. Now, for them, they at least have the Drew Holiday and Derek White piece because I think those two guys are stabilizing forces that are mature and can center the team back when they're kind of off the rails. But that's just something to look forward to. If you're Indiana, do what you do and create chaos and defend like you've been defending against the Knicks. You ain't gonna be a great defensive team, but if you can force Boston to take them bad shots like they have a tendency to do, you got a chance to hang around in the series. You think I'm just wild with that?
I mean, I would say this. That's the only way they can hang out, like or hang around. If you had to put forward a scenario in which they could hang with Boston in the series, that's the only way they could. Barring, of course, a significant injury on Boston's side. Um, but even then, I don't see that happening. At best, I see this series being 3-1 and then Boston closing it out in five. Like, there's no excuse for Boston to make this a 6 or even 7 game series. I mean, if they do that, then I really have to start looking at Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown pairing. I really have to start looking at the coaching staff. Like, if they do that and they don't end up turning it around and winning the championship, I think you have to start asking yourself some really serious questions about this team and possibly, dare I say, blowing it up to a degree this offseason.
Well, let's pump the brakes. Well, we know they're gonna take care of business,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, they're probably gonna take care of business. The thing with Indiana, they just don't have enough offensive creators outside of Halliburton individually to make things happen. But because they always keep the ball moving and always keep the ball hopping around, they make quick, decisive decisions. They dribble, pass, or shoot, and there's not a lot of holding the ball and like seeing what happens and calling this guy up first screen and calling that guy. They're just kind of always making it work. You can kind of catch some teams off balance, and I think that's their advantage. Boston should be ready for that. They're well rested. There's no excuse. This is Boston's time. You need to get to the finals. You don't even have to play Jokic because Jokic was the one matchup. If I'm Boston, I'm like, we have nothing for. We don't have Horford. None of that. We have nothing for. At least if they pull out, if it's the West and you have to play a Luca or Anthony Edwards or Kyrie, your best asset is your perimeter wing defenders, right? Like the Derek Weiss, the Drew Holidays. Not that those guys are going to stop those guys, but that's the strength of your team. But the
Even
strength,
Tatum and Jalen Brown, yes.
right? Yeah, even Tatum and Jalen Brown too. So you have a lot of guys you can throw at those in Anthony Edwards or a Luca in a series. They ain't got nobody for Jokic. So we'll get to Boston as if they get to the finals, and we'll talk about that at that time. But yeah, this is the time. They got to get that ring now. Because if they don't get that ring now, I don't know when they're going to get the ring. Because every year it's way too hard. As you see, the injuries were a big thing in this playoff run, as every playoff run is, and nothing is guaranteed. And to be quite honest with you, Boston's been in the playoffs, basically every year and had deep playoff runs with Tatum and Brown, and they've really stayed healthy. And look at every other team in the East. even just in the East, not every team has been that long with their same core and guys stayed healthy. Jimmy Butler got hurt, Giannis got hurt, obviously Embiid's had his injuries. I mean, guys are constantly getting hurt and they're able to stay healthy. So you just don't want to take, you got to take advantage of it while you have it because you just never know when you're going to get back. And I know like this isn't, people probably feel like this thing can really last forever, but it doesn't really always last forever. So if I'm Boston, you got to
No,
grab the bull by the horns. But so you're saying a 5 game series. I'm gonna say I'm gonna give the Pacers 2 games because Cleveland almost caught 2 games and they had no business getting 2 games. Can we just be honest? They had no they had no business almost getting 2 games. I'm gonna give the Pacers 2 games. I'm gonna go on a limb here too, Trey. I think they might snatch game 1. I think they might go in there and
it,
snatch game 1 off of that momentum. I do.
I like I said, I got them winning in five. If they were going to win a game, I think that's probably the best chance because of this thing that Boston can kind of they can catch. Boston's a team that can sleepwalk. Like we watched enough Boston over the years, not even just this year, but like they can come to a games and they could kind of underestimate the opponent and you could catch them slipping. So that wouldn't really shock me. But if that does happen, I need to see Boston respond to the game too, because if it's not there, yeah, I mean, we could be in for a really interesting series.
Now, to be fair, yeah, they've responded usually after those lulls and lapses this year, like they have in years past. So that's why this team kind of feels a little different. But on the way out, Trey, I will say this: when we do my tiers this year, oh, it's gonna look different. And I don't want to overreact, but Halliburton, Tatum, and Edwards or Luca, somebody's moving up because somebody gonna get a ring. Somebody gonna get a ring and add to that legacy. Matter of fact, I don't even think I had Anthony Edwards. I don't even think he might have not even been on the tiers. Or maybe he probably was on the tiers, but he's probably like a lot lower as far as just coming up. But people are moving up, Trey. Like that's what the biggest thing is gonna be. But I wonder who would if who I don't know. I'm just asking you this randomly because I just thought about it. Who does the ring help the most in their legacy today? Because I mean, some of these guys are young and have opportunities to get it, but who do you think it helps the most today?
I would probably say Luca, just because of everything that he's been able to do individually in his career. They like, yeah, Jason Tatum's had a lot of individual success, but I think Luca's had more to this point. Anthony Edwards, again, he's on track to be a superstar if he's not already. But again, he doesn't have the same individual success that Luca has. So I think that this a ring can kind of cement Luca's status as an all-time great, whereas Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum, it cements them as one of the better ones, better players of their generation. But they still have to do a little bit more work in the back end. But I think for Luca, like this could kind of put him in a different pantheon. I do have a question for you though, since you want to throw a question at me.
Okay.
And I have to let me just go ahead and give you some additional information. So this year, before the playoffs were starting, I was thinking because the way Jokic was on his way to winning his third MVP, which he did, and I was just thinking like, man, if he can win another Finals and be Finals MVP, which he probably would have won or would have done if they had won the Finals, I was thinking like, man, this can cement his status as an all-time great, and we could be talking about somebody that's looking at a top 10 player.
Ooh.
Does this loss at all kind of hinder his climb amongst the top players? Does it kind of make you pause and second guess what you've been thinking about him for the last couple of years? Because I know like this year, people have been saying that he's one of the best offensive players of his generation, maybe the best offensive player of his generation. Has this loss made you change your mind in any way how you look at Jokic?
No. And here's the reason why. He didn't get bested in a game 7. He didn't play his greatest game, but he didn't just have a complete dud. Now, let's say he did what Anthony Edwards did. He went 6 for 24, had 6, 7 turnovers, like Jokic. Jokic had like 6, 7 turnovers or whatever in game 1. Let's say he had a game like that and he lost in a game 7. I feel differently. But because he didn't play horribly, and he actually helped them down the stretch, even stay to get back into that game, I just think he lost to probably a better team at this point. That was, like he said in his press conference, a team that was built to beat him. And all those great players, even the guys in the top 10, have gone through their wars of losing in the playoffs. I think he just did his like a little bit backwards. He had his wars in the beginning where he was losing and didn't have and he had the inferior team, and then Now he's been great, but it's hard, man. It's hard to go repeat. It's hard to keep continuing to do this thing, but he's won 3 MVPs. He's not even 30 years old. He's gonna be just fine. I haven't changed anything with his legacy. That this wasn't a legacy defining game for me. If anything, it was more of a legacy defining for Anthony Edwards. And I will mention this to the question I asked you. I would pick Anthony Edwards as the biggest jump, and my reason would actually just be a lot of off the court. Anthony Edwards wins a championship, he's automatically the face of the league. He's because he's got the personality along with the game. We know he likes to talk trash, Trey. He would be unbearable if he wins a ring. Unbearable on social media. You already know it's gonna be unbearable. So I can already see him winning a ring. He's gonna be on SNL. He's gonna be on all these shows. Like he's gonna be the face. So I think that would honestly, I didn't even ask this. That would be the greatest thing for the league if
Oh
Ant
yeah.
wins a championship. Like just for the league, it's like, yeah, that guy was a championship at this young. It would fuel the whole Jordan comparisons. Even though I know he's not Jordan, but that's been a thing. That and he's an American star. I think that would be the greatest thing for the league. So his legacy would jump, and I'd probably get into my head, and I'd probably have to put him as a top 5 player in the league if he won a championship. Especially if he did it in like a fashion where like a la D Wade in '06, where he just took over, you know what I'm saying, and then did it like, you probably feel differently about him. So, but yeah, I don't know if the Jokic's legacy changed. Do you feel it has some credence to it, like just because they lost that game 7?
So I don't think it affects his legacy in a negative sense, but I do think that he missed a big opportunity because winning the regular season MVP and then winning Finals MVP in the same year. I mean, that's something amazing to do. Like you don't the all-time greats do that. Michael Jordan is LeBron, Tim Duncan. Like it hasn't been done since LeBron did it in 2012, and then before that, it hasn't been done since Tim Duncan in '03. Like I just think that he had a really solid chance to kind of cement his legacy and win back-to-back finals. And I hope he didn't miss this opportunity, but this might have just been his window might have closed because a couple of years ago with Giannis, we thought, okay, they're just going to be going back to back finals. Like this is the start of a possible dynasty. And then as we see now, nothing really came of it. They got that one championship, and that was pretty much it. So I'm just hoping that Jokic doesn't follow that same path because then it looks kind of weird too, just because historically, he's such a great player and to win 3 MVPs, which he all deserved. I'm not taking that away from him, but to only have one finals out of it, just looks it looks weird. Like it's just not the best look. You know what I mean?
I can see that, and again, I think we're feeling it because of how it just happened. But I think
Yeah.
he's got plenty of time left to win the ring, and to kind of shape it up. But I do agree with the main point that I agree with most of what you said is it would be special to do the back to back thing because not a lot of people have been able to do that. That would be really special to be able to go back to back, and then of course the icing on the cake is be the regular season MVP and then the finals MVP. So and heck, he probably could have even topped it off and try to go get him a medal in Serbia. So who knows? Like he could have probably just tried to do the whole thing. So that would have been pretty special, but I don't think they're done like Giannis and them are done because his game really isn't predicated off athleticism, even if he has some knick-knack injuries. Um, and I like their core. I like the core of Gordon and Murray and him. I like those guys, and I think you can build pieces around those guys because of the way that they play. Um, where I don't really know. Well, at least with Giannis, we thought Middleton was one thing, but then he just got ransacked by injury. So, knock on wood, unless that happens to Murray or Gordon, I feel in a good spot. But like you said, things change. We could probably go back and listen to our podcast from a couple years ago. We probably were feeling feeling the same way about Giannis, right? And then
Yeah.
things kind of change. And Giannis isn't done by any means either, because I think if he would have stayed healthy this year with Dame, they could probably still be even in this thing right now. You know what I mean? So we don't even know. But that's the tough part of the playoffs. You always think you're going to get back. You always think your core is young. You got a chance. That's my thing with OKC, and I'm not to bounce around too much, but that's why I always had a problem with Presti never trading in those picks to go get a guy because you always have this young core. You're like, oh, we're young. We're going to keep developing. We're going to keep developing. And the next thing you know, you missed your window. And what if we look back and this was the deepest OKC gets? Do we think they're going to be the 1 seed next year? We don't even know. The West is stacked, right? So it's just a lot of questions to ask. And it's like, it's one of those things that I always like think about as I'm like randomly watching the games. But, we'll see how the series goes. But either way, I'm excited for good basketball. So, but anyway, I want to thank everybody so much for joining us once again. Like I said before, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, All our content is on there. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you dabble in social media. We'll drop some shorts for you and let us know who you think is going to win. Really, the finals MVP. Really, just these two main series. You know, you got Trey and our picks. Oh, I didn't pick. Yeah, I did pick Indiana. I got 6 games. Boston won the series. So let us know, in the comments and stuff. We love interacting with you guys. And then on the way out, of course, I'll swing it to Trey.
Again, like you said, thank you so much for the continued support. And again, like I always say, we're on all the major platforms, so feel free to check us out. But again, until next week, have a great week. Peace.